All right, what's up, everybody? I am VT Robo Guy here to talk a little bit about my build of my Semi-Gruul ETALI list. I know a lot of people have asked about it, and the goal here is to have a little bit more mid-range value going into value.dex in the pods. So I'm going to go through some of the card selection here, talk about some of the choices, and show a couple example lines here that I have when I go through the deck. So I have a shuffled up library. We're just going to go kind of card by card, and I'll build some of the lines and packages that would do, and then I'll show a couple hands. So the thing about this deck is it still has that same core 80-something card package that every ETALI list should run that can get you a turn 1, turn 2 ETALI out. That's still the number one game plan here, is to still turbo out ETALI the best as you can, but have some other options for win lines. So going through some of the things here that differentiate it from other ETALI lists is some of the protection tutor packages. So in this deck, I am running 2 tutors for X. I'm running Finale Devastation, and I'm also running the harmonized one. That would be the Nature's Rhythm, right? The reason for these is that I've found lately that having access to be able to grab protection through Hexing Squelcher, or to do lines like a turn 1 X equals 1 play to grab a Tinderwall, a Wild Cantor, or things like that are helpful to push to a turn 2 ETALI. Just having the flexibility also to rebuy from graveyard is actually pretty huge. So Finale Devastation, X equals 2, grabbing Squelcher to go into a protected turn is awesome. And then you just have the other abilities of grabbing X equals 3 for a Mind Goblin, X equals 4 for a Treasonous Ogre, so on and so forth. So running the Finale Devastation, so you have access for a potential win line on infinite mana, or access to your graveyard to rebuy a creature that got countered or removed is huge. And for Nature's Rhythm, having an X spell that for this one is kind of sometimes I feel bad to have an X spell when you flip off of ETALI. But for Nature's Rhythm, it's really spicy because if you have it in your yard and you have access to 4 green, you can use your ETALI to harmonize it, and that gets you an X equals 7 creature, which usually is Rionia or something like that. Right, so I do run those 2 tutors specifically since we've pivoted a little bit to get towards more utility with Hexing Squelcher. The next spice that I've run in here is a little more tutor ability because we now have access to Formidable Speaker. So with Formidable Speaker, that is a tutor that is any creature, right? Non-restricted, right? So Formidable Speaker reads, it's a 2/4, I believe. Let me just find it here. So Formidable Speaker is a 2/4 elf druid, right, for 3. And with that, when it ETBs, you can discard a card, which is a real, could be a benefit or, a curse. But with that, it can tutor any creature to your hand. So because we have that as an access point now, that opens up one other tutor that I've been running, which is my currently my secret layer version of Summoner's Pact. Don't hate on me. But Summoner's Pact is that ability if you're going to go into a potentially protected turn to be able to Summoner's Pact for a Formidable Speaker to get any other red creature like a Treasonous Ogre or a Hexing Squelcher. So it does set up some other lines here. So these 3 cards have made up the new tutor package I've been running in this Semi-Gruul list because we have Formidable Speaker and Hexing Squelcher on. Alright, so a couple other cards that I've been running that I've really liked. Since Hexing Squelcher is in the meta for other decks, I've been running a different type of protection package in my deck. I've been running more redirect spells in addition to standard counter spells here. Those are so they can get around Hexing Squelcher type effects. Also in the meta right now, I've seen a lot of land combo type stuff with tap untap effects like with a Aurora Breeze Caller, things like that. And redirect effects like my secret layers, redirect lightning. Once again, don't hate on me for my art. Or other redirect effects that I've been running here, like Ricochet Trap is the other one I run. Let me pull that out. Ricochet Trap. Ricochet Trap reads that if a blue spell has been cast, you can cast it for 1 red, and it can change the target of target spell with a single target. Redirect Lightning is 1 red and 2 usually, but you cast for 1 red and 5 life, or you have to pay 2 extra, and you can redirect 1 thing as well. Those 2 have a lot of utility in the meta right now from what I've seen. So also if someone tries to target my Squelcher with direct removal, I can redirect it. So those have been really good utility lately. The other spice package I've been on lately is a Force of Vigor to remove those pesky draw engines and stacks pieces as well. So on top of those interaction pieces, I've been running a package of Wandering Archaic, Deflecting Swat. I've been running Fury as a creature removal target because in the meta I run, there's a lot of creature-based decks, and being able to get lines that can either finale into Fury or Formidable Speaker into Fury is important, and this is a really, really great political piece lately. Just to be able to say, hey, if you're scared about X equals 5, I'll go grab a Fury and impact the board. So that's been huge. The other interaction package I've been running lately, let me pull it out here. I've been running Red Elemental Blast. We've been running the Pyroblast as well, I believe. Yeah, Pyroblast. And other interaction here would be, let me just confirm my latest build. Yeah, that's the full instant speed interaction package, right? So if you don't count Dual Caster Mage, right? So our instant speed interaction for this list would be Ricochet Trap, Redirect Lightning, Deflecting Swat, all good against Squelcher. Then we have REB, Pyroblast, and Force of Vigor, right? And then we have creature-based removal here in Fury, and then we have Protection in Archaic and Protection in Squelcher, right? That is the package here that we have. So we have all of our protection spells, we have our tutor, our instant and sorcery speed tutors, and then Formidable Speaker in here, right? So that's all some of the protection here. So let me talk about a couple other things that I've been doing lately that has been really good for my deck and my gameplay. I am really big on answering the question of what happens after your first ETALI. Because if you've run Dino for a long time, you know, I know, that you can likely get out your first ETALI, but those dirty blue players will tell you no, and then you sit there for the rest of the game. So this deck and this build lets you pivot to non-ETALI based strategies to win in 2 different ways. So the win lines that we have in this deck are the standard Food Chain Squeak combo. We still have Dual Caster clone combos, but we have 2 other lines here that, a couple other lines actually that help us to push a win, right? So one of the lines that I've been running that has been great lately, let me put all these to the side here. So one line I've been running lately that I've really enjoyed is running the Kiki Jiki Zealous Conscripts line. So let me pull those 2 out here, right? So Zealous Conscript reads, it's a 5 mana 3/3 with haste, a human warrior, so you cannot grab it with finale, just to be clear. But when it enters, you can gain control of target permanent, that's any permanent on the board, untap it, and it gains haste. So this can be great in many, many situations on its own. And this is where kind of the Semi-Gruul mentality comes into play, is that any individual piece is powerful on its own, but it has secondary utility to build towards a win line. So Zealous Conscripts is a great political tool that lets you actually impact the board. Let's say a player has a cradle, right? Okay, I'm going to play this and steal your cradle, right? Or I'm going to play this and steal your stacks piece, whatever else is disabling the board. It's a huge thing just to say, hey, I'm going to use that proactively to help the table. But more selfishly, this could also be a thing where you play it and say, okay, I'm going to steal your Ristic Study for this turn. Or I'm going to steal your Draenith Magistrate for this turn so I can play ETALI. Right? It has a lot of utility just on its own to be able to for that turn, unlock the board. Or I've used this before to steal Vexing Baubles and then cracked it so I can draw the card and then cast ETALI to pop off. Right? So this on its own is pretty good. Now let's talk about the other piece of the combo, the Kiki Jiki. Right? And let's talk about on its own why it's good and why they're good together. So Kiki Jiki, real quick note, this is a 3/3. You cannot tutor this off of our Imp Recruiter, but you can get off Formidable Speaker, and you can get it off of Nature's Rhythm, right? So just important to say, if you have a win line set up, you would maybe Some are just packed to be able to grab Formidable Speaker, which then lets you get conscripts. So just a couple of interesting lines here for that. Okay, so let's talk about the other piece of the combo here is Kiki Jiki. Oh, wait, I forgot. I have another interaction piece. I'm also running Flare Duplication. Right, so Flare is the other piece that I'm running as a clone, which is free interaction that is a copy effect to be able to get over top of everything. So if someone tries to, Mind Break Trap or something else, a spell that you really want to copy of, you can flare it on top, right? So that's the other interaction piece. All right, so let's talk about Kiki Jiki. So Kiki Jiki Mirror Breaker. So it's a 5 mana 2/2, so you can tutor it off of Imperial Recruiter. It's 3 red and 2 colorless. It has haste. It's a legendary creature, goblin. You can tap it to put a token, basically make a token copy of target non-legendary creature you control. The token has haste and sack it at the end of the turn. So let's talk about these two first in isolation. Kiki Jiki plus Zealous Conscript is an infinite attacker combo. So you can tap this to make a copy of Zealous Conscripts. A new copy comes in on ETB. It untaps Kiki. You get a copy. Right, and then you do that again, you get another copy, right, so on and so forth until you have infinite copies of Zealous Conscripts and you can attack the board with infinite damage, right? That's the easy combo. It is expensive. It is a 5 mana creature and a 5 mana creature, but that's fine because we have ways of getting that, right? A lot of times in the game, you'll just have one of these out, I've found, and you just kind of worldly tutor for the other one and you just, randomly have wins. So this combo is great to build towards, especially in a long game that is stacks heavy or blue heavy. This doesn't cast any non-creatures, so it gets around non-creature spell stacks. Also, it's harder to interact with because it's 2 creatures. So many times you'll have one or the other of these creatures up, and you're building towards getting the other piece on turn 5 or turn 6. So it's one of the things that is your long game plan in a mid-range battle. You're not going to get the value that other decks will have, but you will be able to likely get one of these out and just sneak through a game. All right, let's talk about Kiki Jiki on its own, though, because that on its own has a ton of value in this deck. Kiki Jiki is a legitimate value piece for a lot of the pieces that we have. So Kiki Jiki plus Formidable Speaker gets you more clones. Kiki Jiki plus Fury gets you more pings on the board. There have definitely been games where I've had I've had the opportunity to get to the win line on board, and I politics saying, "Hey, look, you have a stop here." They showed a stop to the Kiki Jiki. I'm like, I'm just gonna make a deal right now. I'm not gonna activate this combo for the rest of the game unless you tell me to, but usually they don't. And I'll say, okay, I'm just gonna keep this here because then what I can do at any point, I can just Kiki Jiki to Zealous Conscripts to take control of someone else's permanent before they pop off. So, oh, you have that breach? Nope, no more. I get that breach, right? You have a Grand Abolisher? Nope, I'll take that Grand Abolisher, right? So even if you present the combo and people are like, oh, you're about to win, be like, okay, I'd rather have this on board as a political piece than you remove it. So here's the deal I'll make. I just won't go for infinite. And you have to keep that deal. You can't be shady. You can't be shady and be like, nope, okay, now I win. No, because you'll lose all your political stock. But if you are a trustworthy person and they trust you, you'd be like, yep, you show me stop, I'm going to just have this on board. I will not activate it for the win. I'll only activate it when we both agree on, and I'll use it for political power and use it for stops. So it is a very, very powerful political piece, even if you aren't able to win with it. Then you can have things like Kiki plus Fury, just to kind of kill everyone's creatures every turn. Kiki Jiki plus Eternal Witness, that's a good another combo, and it's a lot of your other value creatures in here. Kiki plus Disciple for Elise, so on and so forth. There's enough creatures in here that give you the value that make it work. So I've just really enjoyed having this as a toolbox piece in this deck to get to. All right, now let's talk about the biggest spice of the deck. This is a mid-range line that lets you win on anyone's turn without casting a spell. So that's the main thing that is the other win line here that is a spice that I've developed that is pretty darn good. I've won several times with this combo, and it's just, I love it. I love it every time I get this. So this is based off of Sneak Attack. Now, again, in the tenet of Semi-Gruul, you want to have pieces that just give you value on its own. Sneak Attack is a great piece for this deck because we're running like 30 or so creatures, And a lot of our creatures are high impact, like Fury, like Formidable Speaker, like, Wonder Archaic, Hellkite Courser, all that stuff. We want to, getting this out early, getting this out early is a huge, huge value piece just to enable so much in our deck. So Sneak Attack reads for 3 colors for 1 red. It's an enchantment. You can pay a red as an instant speed ability, and that ability is on stack. And if it resolves, you don't have to name what you're going to put in, but if it resolves, you can put in a creature card from your hand into the battlefield, right? Once they let that resolve, there's no other window, right? So also, you don't have to tell what creature it is, right? So you can put that on a stack, and let's say they try to remove your Sneak Attack with that activation on stack. If you have another red, you just put another one on top of the stack. So it's another piece that lets you interact over top of other pieces. So while this is good value just to put any one of our other value creatures in, including Hellkite Courser, Eternal Witness, all the usual good stuff, Sticker Goblin, right, for 1 red, all that good stuff. It does enable 2 new combos, right? It helps to solve the issue, what the hell happens if I have really bad stickers, right, for other lines. So let's say you have worse stickers. You have 3, 4, 4 for your maximum stickers. This deck does run Cloudstone Curio. So you can do loops with Mind Goblin, Cloudstone, and any creature through Sneak Attack. So let's say you have this here, we'll say Wonder Archaic for now, right? So, and you have a Cloudstone on board, you pay 1 red, you Sneak Attack in Mind Goblin, ETB, you get, we'll make it the worst case, you get 3 red, right? So you get 3 red floating. You have a Cloudstone trigger, you bounce back any other creature back to hand, right? You use 1 red to Sneak Attack in the next creature, which is a Wonder Archaic. This will bounce Mind Goblin back to hand. Sticker goes back on a sheet. I'll use 1 more mana to Sneak Attack in Mind Goblin, add 3 more to 4. So that loop nets you 1 mana in the worst case sticker, right? So having Sneak Attack plus Cloudstone plus Sticker Goblin and 1 other creature gives you infinite red mana capabilities that can do it over the stack. So you could do that if you have these 2 on board and 1 other creature, you can do that on top of other people to get infinite mana, right? Now, the other thing this builds to is a little bit convoluted line, but my favorite line in the deck, which is a line that actually utilizes a couple more pieces. So this line, I've talked about it a couple times before to other people, but it's a Protean Hulk line. And it's my favorite spice because people are just not used to seeing Hulk piles in Gruul. They're like, oh, what's this going to do? And I'm like, okay, well, let me show you. So the setup here is that if you have Protean Hulk in hand, I'm just going to set up a board state that's reasonable so we can see what it does, right? So let's say you have Protean Hulk in hand. You have an artifact on board, and you have Sneak Attack on board. And you have at least, let's make it even simpler. Let's make it simpler. You have 1 red mana open, an artifact on board, so I'm using this artifact land as an example, and at least any 1 creature in hand, right? This is the requirements. If you have Protean Hulk, Sneak Attack, 1 red mana, an artifact, and another creature in hand, you can win the game, right? It's a deterministic win every time, right? Without interaction, obviously, because there is 1 interaction point. So what you do is you put a Sneak Attack activation on a stack in your second main, or in literally anyone's second main, right? It doesn't have to be in your turn. This wins on anyone's turn in the end step, right? So you do a Sneak Attack activation in second main, you put Protean Hulk into play. At this point, you go into end step and you have a delayed trigger, right? So Protean Hulk has a sacrifice trigger, and it reads, when it dies, search your library for any number of creature cards with total mana value 6 or less and put them into the battlefield, then shuffle. So this dies. When this dies, you end up getting your pile of Mind Goblin and Imperial Recruiter, right? That's your option 1. Right, that's option 1, right? Because their goal here is now to have mana and another tutor, right, to hand, right? So your Mind Goblin, let's say worst case, gives you 3 red. The tutor target from Pure Recruiter is going to be your Goblin Engineer. Now it's important, it doesn't go to the field, it needs to go to your hand, right? Because the next thing we do is activate our sneak attack going down to 2 red. In the end step, we sneak attack in Goblin Engineer. On ETB, we search out the Cloudstone from our graveyard, put it into the yard. Now sneak attack gives Goblin Engineer haste. So we can use 1 other red here, right? 1 other red, right? To get this back. Now I put 3 as a number here. Likely the worst case you can have is 4 mana. So let's say we had 4 mana, right? So we had 4 mana ETB, we go down to 3 for the sneak attack of the Goblin Engineer, right? So we're at 3 mana floating, right? So next thing we do is we go down to 2, we activate Goblin Engineer, sacrificing our artifact, it could be any artifact, targeting our Cloudstone, right? Now granted, people can react here with a redirect or a Noxious, so that's just how it breaks. So just know that there are interaction points, but most times that's very far and few in between. So at this point, our Cloudstone comes in, and then this is why we need to have that one last creature, because we put an activation of Mind Goblin on the stack. We sneak attack into Wild Canter, which bounces the Mind Goblin back to hand. Sticker goes back on the sheet. Now we have 1 mana left over, so we can sneak attack to Mind Goblin back in, ETB, get that 4 mana, bounce back a creature, right? So we do this. Now we can present infinite mana here, like we showed before, but also because of Imperial Recruiter, we can start getting infinite tutors, right? So our first couple tutors can grab whatever, all of our 2-drops to hand, right? Perfect, right? And then at some point, we can grab one of our 2-drops, which is our Formidable Speaker, right? So then this is what really unlocks the combo here, because Formidable Speaker comes in, we can go grab our Hellkite Courser, right? This is option 1, we can grab the Hellkite Courser, and then we can sneak attack in Hellkite Courser, which brings it to ETALI, right? Which then bounces it back, so we can do this infinitely, right? And just deck everyone. But let's say they don't accept that line, or you don't have access to ETALI, or Hellkite Courser is exiled. What's our backup play? Our backup play is actually using, in this case, Electro. So Electro, which I have the within universe version here. Let me grab. Right, I have Bayo, right? It reads, here we go. You don't lose, it's a 2/3 for 3 with flying, human villain. You don't lose unspent red mana as phase and steps end. Whenever you cast an instant sorcery spell, add red. Whenever it leaves the battlefield, you may pay X. When you do, it deals X damage to target player. So the reason why this works is that you're going to have infinite represented. You have a Cloudstone, so you sneak attack this in, right? You bounce something else, you go and do another loop, and this goes back to hand, you have that trigger. You can ping everyone in the face. So that way you have that win line too, right? So there's another way you can win just with infinite mana with Bayo or Electro, right? So there's lines. It's a pretty resilient package, right? Because remember, you have a pretty strong interaction package here in your 1, 2, 3 redirects. You have your Flare plus Dual Caster technically. You have your 2 counterspells, and you have 2 targeted removal here, right? And then you have 2 protection pieces in Winter Cake and Hexing Squelcher, right? And then you have your normal, the rest of the deck is your normal ETALI ramp, right? You do have Veil Summer as your normal protection piece, but everything else is fairly standard ETALI, right? Everything else, just get that ETALI out, do the thing. The thing I run in here that other people don't run, I do run a Cradle package just because I'm a little more creature heavy and because Formidable Speaker plus Cradle is gas. So I do run Sowing Mycospawn, I do run Cradle, I run Crop Rotation for those reasons. The last piece of spice in here that some people run, but not everyone, is I do run a little bit more top end in a Hairgast, right? And that has been useful just to refill the hand and be able to just do. For me, it's another 4 mana clone because it's 2 mana emergent out through ETALI, and you pay another 2 mana, you get a recast ETALI. So it's been good for me to as another target here. So Yeah, that's the version of Semi-Gruul I've been on. It's been running pretty hot for me this month and last month. Currently this month in the February Crit League as of February 7th, I'm running at about a 58% win rate with the deck. So it's been good. It's been good. Um, I will say, if you have been on ETALI and you've been discouraged because you just run into walls, you need to have your yap. You need to be able to talk deals and be trustworthy and know when to pivot. If someone's about to counter your ETALI, counter your search, offer them value, right? For example, I've had times where someone has showed me a swords for the Protean Hulk before the trigger. I'm like, hey, that's fine. You showed it to me. Let me go grab this Fury to handle the board and a Tender Wall. Let me go get that, right? Um, and that is value that you get, right? And then you still have your Protean Hulk in the yard to be able to rebuy later if you get to that. In that game in particular, I ended up getting to the point where I could just get to the combo naturally because I had Imperial Recruiter, right? Or I had Mind Goblin or some other tutor. Because once you have Sneak Attack out, if you get the tutors and you have mana, you're fine, right? So, you could also just win by having Sneak Attack plus Imperial Recruiter and Mind Goblin and enough mana to go off, right? Because this just enables getting to here. But if you have Sneak Attack out, you can still do the combo naturally if you just get those cards in hand. All right, so that's the kind of the quick deck tech of where I'm at right now on the list, and I hope that this is helpful for you all who are interested in Semi-Gruul type of mid-range package. It has been hot. I've loved this version, and it actually has a pretty good amount of playability. It won't outdraw Blue Farm. It won't outdraw anyone. You're not going to have draw engines. You just have to use your brain. You have to be able to use your yap and just most games, just to be honest, if you're going past turn 5, you might sneak out a win, but you need to have tools to be able to enable a draw. So all of these tools here, you hold and you wait for that position where, okay, I'm not winning this game, but I can definitely have a piece to enable a draw. One example was one game was like game 5 or 6, and there was a fastest on the stack. I just held up the red Homeland Blast. I was like, okay, is this a draw now? And that was the third push of the game. Everyone used their action. And I was able to say, okay, this will be draw, right? So I was able to use some political power there. So don't be scared to pivot your game plan. If you know you're not winning, your game plan becomes, let's get a draw here, because 1 point or some points is better than no points, especially in TDH. So if you have any questions, hit me up on in the ETALI Discord, VT Robo Guy on Instagram, VT Robo Guy in Discord, and VT Robo Guy cEDH on YouTube. All right. Look forward to talking to you guys next time, and I'll be posting up more gameplay videos and lists and adjustments as I go. All right.